These are the highlands of Wales. The bare bones of Snowdonia. Once an awesome defense against those bent on plunder and rapine. A great natural fortress which held back all but the most determined invaders. Today, the mountains themselves enjoy protection with national park status. In world rankings, mere pimples, but still the loftiest region of southern Britain. For the adventurous, a chance to conquer and reflect amid silence and solitude. Well, usually. It's 7:30 in the morning. Another busy day lies ahead of these train crews and their engines. It starts with the locomotives being fed and watered. Steam is raised. The maintenance and final checks are complete. Fresh from an overnight wash and brush up, carriages are shunted to the departure platform. For 100 years, the Snowdon Mountain Railway has borne travellers 3,500 feet upwards to Wales's highest summit. 11 locomotives provide the power, with 8 probably busy at any one time. Coal is one fuel, diesel another. They may make 4 trips a day at the height of the season. For them and their crews, it's a familiar routine. Procedures have changed no more than marginally since 1896. Nothing, nobody looks a lot different. In the hot summer of 1995, 142,000 tourists rode the railway without mishap, a record. Its 78 staff who work here can feel proud. Their job is to see that everything works like clockwork. To their customers, the sensation and sounds of steam propulsion are startling, and these days, novel, an adventure from bygone days. Enid is the oldest inhabitant here. Imported from Switzerland 101 years ago, she arrived in time to assist the line's construction by ferrying men and materials to and fro. Since then, she's chugged the equivalent of 10 times around our planet. To put it another way, upwardly mobile some 3,500 times the height of Everest. Lying ahead, scenery on the grand scale. Formed from some of the oldest rock on Earth and shaped by glaciation, wind and water, Snowdon has carved out a special quality. In her moody folds lie secrets of an ancient land. She aspires to the clouds and veils herself in their turbulence. Because of hostile natives and the more benign appeal of the European mainland, tourists shunned these parts until the Napoleonic Wars forced them to look westwards. They found wild Wales bleak and inhospitable. Even practiced travellers found the terrain frightening. It seemed like the ends of the earth. Then the Industrial Revolution took a hand. It gave a boost to tourism. In the second half of the last century, the Iron Horse was penetrating the remotest parts of Britain. North Wales came within reach of everyone, though it seemed that high mountains must remain out of the railway's reach. The Swiss begged to disagree. Their technologists came up with a rack and pinion system, by which trains began literally clawing their way up the Rigi mountain above Lucerne. The work of a certain Dr. Abt, it fired the ambitions of rail-happy entrepreneurs in Britain. A bill to replicate the Rigi Railway on Snowdon's north flank was presented in the Lords in 1872. It failed through opposition from the landowner Duff Ashton Smith of the Vinyl. Despite passionate appeals from his Llanberis tenants, he remained unbending.
Well, over the years, the deputation from Llanberis here, made up of business people, had been to the Vinyl on various occasions to try and convince him of the fact that Beddgelert on the other side of the mountain was certainly fast becoming the main tourist and mountaineering centre, due to the fact that what was then the North Wales Narrow Gauge Railway, which then became the Welsh Island Railway, was advancing towards Beddgelert. So these people went to the Vinyl and implored upon Mr. Ashton Smith, and he always used to say, no, 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 I'm not having this scar on my mountain.
Through the resistance of Ashton Smith, Beddgelert achieved a head start, jeopardizing Llanberis' prosperity and hence his own income. Local traders and business folk were desperate.
They went and put all the cards on the table and implored upon Mr. Ashton Smith to give in. And he said, well, I'll think it over. And fortunately, he gave in the end. He said, yes, right-o. And from then on, without doubt, he gave 100% support to the venture.
The Snowdon Mountain Tramroad and Hotels Company, specially constituted, with £70,000 to spend, was delighted. Environmentalists were devastated, notably a certain Canon Rawnsley, who lobbied the press and beseeched Ashton Smith in his capacity as
Honorary Secretary of the National Trust for the Preservation of Sites of Historic Interest and Natural Beauty, to ask you to withdraw from this objectionable scheme of vulgarising Snowdon, in a sense, belongs not only to Llanberis, but to the whole world. It is one of the few places in our crowded country where Snowdon, so easily accessible as it is, both by night and day, of its grand national solitude and supereminent charm, will be to inflict a loss upon the whole world.
Ashton Smith declined to change his mind a second time. His estate agent called the Canon a dreamer and faddist, whose letters were sickly, sentimental drizzle. In December 1894, the inevitable building work began.
The construction of the line was let to a company called Holmes and King, and they had their own travelling gangs of people who were referred to as navvies, mainly because they're the same people that cut the canals, the navigation canals, in the early 1800s, and then they turned to railway building when the railway mania came on from about 1840 onwards. Because it's a rack railway, you can't start in various places then put it together by putting closers in. You have to do all your civil work, then start from one end and just lay it from the bottom to the top. Astonishing, really, when you think that they had none of the earth-moving equipment, none of the cranes, not even any of the sophisticated surveying equipment that we have now. Because they did it all with horses and with over 200 men working, all dragging sledges and things of this nature. And in 14 months, and a remarkable feat of engineering by any standards.
Through 2 harsh winters, they'd laid over 4.5 miles of single-track line, rails set 800 millimeters apart, the double-bladed rack fixed centrally between them. The new service said the adverts could offer a complete package for tourists wishing to see one of the grandest sights in the world. And it could have added, without getting out of breath.
I think it's unbelievable. And the fact that you can get up a mountain without having to walk.
When you hear about a train going to the top of the mountain, you tend to think of something more modern, you know, and I think that this wasn't what I expected when I was told that a train went to the top. So I think that this old-fashioned train is a treat in itself.
Today's passengers, who include steam enthusiasts, enjoy the rhythmic rockabye progress. When it's spelled out to them, most are taken aback by the relationship between locomotives and carriages. They're not connected. Each carriage is pushed uphill. During the descent, it simply leans against the braking engine.
I think a rack and pinion makes it interesting, makes it a rumbly ride, but no, I enjoyed it more than I expected to.
Wonderful, great. I really enjoyed it, it was lovely, and I think everybody else on the train also enjoyed it.
It's a double-headed experience, eye-catching scenery and the rustic quaintness of the railway and its station. Passengers are aware too of a constant, safe, caring atmosphere, which is cultivated.
Since I've been here since 77, it's been one happy family, should imagine. Everybody, you can switch offices up here and everybody slots in where they need be.
In some instances, there's 2 or 3 generations of the same family working here, and they go back right to the days when the railway were built. It's all very integrated.
Sometimes diplomacy is needed. In the record 99th summer, there were sometimes 32 trips a day, but as the carriage capacity is strictly limited to 59, travellers often have to kill time before boarding.
Train on the platform is the 12:30 train, departs for the summits. All tickets on this train has now been sold. Your next train on the platform will be the 1 o'clock train, departs for the summits. The round trip to the summits and back lasts just under 2.5 hours, including a half an hour after train.
Though trains may stop at stations, they are mainly passing places, necessary on a single-track line. Nobody gets off or on. Progress is steady, but scarcely helter-skelter. The trains average around 5 miles an hour, but with 8 on the line at any given time, precise scheduling is crucial to maintain timetables and prevent traffic jams.
We are in touch with each guard and each diesel driver by radio. The job of the traffic control is to plan the day ahead. Instructions are given to the guard from Llanberis where he's passing, and if he's not passing, all that gen is given to him when he leaves Llanberis. The summit's in touch with all trains and the traffic controller in Llanberis, so we work together.
What's it like at £10, thank you? What's it like at the top?
Is it above the clouds?
It's been cloudy this morning, but it is so changeable up there. It could well be bright sunshine when you get to the top. I certainly hope so, but we can't guarantee it. The weather's so unpredictable on the mountain that there's no honest answer to that.
It's true that Llanberis can be enjoying bright sunshine, while at altitude a mist may be descending and the temperature, even in summer, could be freezing. Early and late in the year, conditions on the mountain may be so severe that this station becomes the last one on the trip. It's about here that the other travellers on the mountain, the walkers and hikers, begin to feel the climate. At 2,500 feet, you have to be hardy not to envy the paying passengers going up the comfortable warm way. As for them, they're now launched onto the final 1,000 feet of their journey. The system dictates they'll have to catch the same train back after just 30 minutes. Disembarkation at a railway station in the sky. Next to those who came up the hard way, a rest and sustenance at the adjacent cafe. And a service to intrigue philatelists. But for most, the real attraction lies another 100 feet higher, with the chance to stand on top of the world. The cloud lifts to reveal stunning vistas that take in Ireland, the Isle of Man, Wales's southern peaks, and the nobility of Snowdon's neighbours.
Been up on the train before, but that's like 20 years ago. This is the first time I've ever walked up here, so it's quite an experience. It's quite tremendous. The last bit, I just thought, oh God, I'm not going to make it, but...
What I really find attractive is the peace, the isolation of the mountains, away from it all.
It's very beautiful up here, very mystical. You can see quite a distance. It's extremely scenic. It's a long way from home for us, so we really are excited to be here.
It was quite oily and smelly around the trains, and they almost seemed like they could barely make it coming up and down. A little nerve-wracking. But it's nice. It makes you feel like you're stepping back in time.
Because of their appeal for visitors, the value of Snowdon and its railway to the Gwynedd economy is hugely enhanced.
Well, of course, the whole tourist industry is vitally important to this area. It's the biggest industry that we've got, and this is one of the gems within the industry. Snowdon itself attracts people, and clearly people going up by train do bring more money into the economy in the context of Snowdon. Therefore, the mountain railway, although it's seasonal, is the source of employment, and it's the source of bringing resources into the area.
It has contributed to what the tourist industry calls a honeypot situation. The Lakeside Railway, besides Llynpadarn, is another. The expectations of the early entrepreneurs have been confirmed by the prosperity of Llanberis and its well-maintained hotels, some of them old established. On April the 6th, 1896, they put up many of the guests attending a grand occasion. The new mountain railway's first passenger trains reach Snowdon's summit. As the weather worsens, however, celebrations are cut short. Ladders bearing Ashton Smith's initials begins the descent. But something's wrong. Suddenly, the engine gathers momentum, losing its grip. The driver and fireman try desperately to slow the accelerating locomotive. Sensing danger, the guard in the carriage applies its brakes, which mercifully take effect. But in the confusion, one passenger leaps unnecessarily into the mist. Ladders is completely beyond control. Out of options, the driver and firemen jump to safety. Moments before, the engine loses traction completely and plummets nearly 2,000 feet to its doom. The carriage brakes held. Its remaining passengers were safe, despite a further derailment, that of Enid, following but unaware of the accident. The passenger who jumped, Ellis Roberts, failed to recover from injury. The accident was thus a fatal and puzzling one.
They never did prove exactly what happened, but when you think that they laid the track bed and the ballast over that particular section of track, probably in October, November of 1895, when by modern standards there would be a lot of frost about, it is probable that they laid the permanent way on top of frozen ballast, which was beginning to thaw in April of 96, and probably the weight of 2 or 3 trains going over it before the accident occurred, up and down, could well have caused some sort of local subsidence which caused the locomotive to derail. There's one thing about working on Snowdon is that there's no room for complacency.
Since the accident, safety has been paramount. Staff go on courses, meticulous testing takes place all year round. Winter sees extensive work renewing track and rack sections.
Well, this part we're working now is about half a mile. So about 600-700 sleepers. When we change the rack, we burn 4 bolts off, then we take the rack off, and we put new racks on. But if you've got to change the sleeper first before you put the rack in. You've got to get them to pitch, 120mm pitch. That's the objective of the job. Then we change the fish plates, then we could try and get the track straight. Last summer was really bad for the line, really, because of the hot weather we had. resolve kinks in the line with all the heat of the steel expanding.
The maintenance needed by the rolling stock is another source of round-the-year employment for over 50 of the workforce.
A lot of people seem to think that come winter time we just put the engines back in the shed and throw a dust sheet over them and only fire them up again the following spring. But no, all our maintenance work and heavy repairs are done at this time of the year in the winter. During the summer months we plan ahead to think what we are going to do in the winter months and which locos and which carriages require attention. Steam engines generally get stripped every 2 years for attention to axle boxes and wheel bearings, and the main drive pinions have to be examined and items like that. A lot of the staff here have maybe a summer job, but then maybe switch on to something else during the winter months when obviously the jobs are different. There's a lot of work to be done, a wide variety of tasks. Everything from major strip downs where all the mechanical components are looked at, everything through the repairs to those, the heavy machining work that is done in the machine shop, the fabrication work that is done in the welding side, painting obviously to make everything look smart again for the following year. People don't always appreciate that spare parts aren't available for especially the older engines. So we do have to make a lot of parts ourselves and do our own machining. And we often refer to the old drawings and blueprints to work out what exactly is required and how they were made before.
Enid is over 100 years old now, although it's like the pitman's axe. He only had one all his working life, he just had 3 new heads and 4 new handles. See no reason why, given the same standards of maintenance, you shouldn't be here in 200, 300, 400 years' time. In fact, we're getting more and more popular. There's more people on the railway now than we've had ever in the last 100 years. We're getting 30% of our visitors from overseas. People that live on the flatlands, the plains of Europe, love to come to Snowdon and do a bit of mountaineering made easy.
In marketing terms, Snowdon Mountain Railway is fortunate in being 15% about a train ride, 85% about a mountain. If the appeal of the latter and its panoramas is eternal, the former has to balance the nostalgia of being driven by steam against a need to move with the times. Hence, during its 99th autumn, discreet trials featured a new look. State-of-the-art diesel-electric rail cars, made in South Wales. To match them, new ideas and a new manager to take the line into the next millennium.
I don't see that we can improve our capacity now very much. That's been what my predecessor has concentrated on. Now we've got to try and improve the passenger environment, the passenger experience as a whole. We can get them up and down the mountain efficiently, but I'd like to see some improved facilities on the mountain, particularly at Clogwyn, when we can't run to the summit. And if we can get some cooperation with the county council and others, perhaps improve the summit facilities as well.
Wales is a land of great little trains, of which this one, if not the greatest, is certainly first among equals. Our Centenary salute hopes that the Snowdon Mountain Railway will enjoy many happy return trips.
I'm very much looking forward to the challenges of leading the railway into the next century. Clearly there will be problems and challenges ahead, but we have a very, very dedicated workforce here, and with their support I'm quite confident that we can meet all these challenges and that the railway will have a strong future well into the next century and, who knows, hopefully beyond.